Good day, everybody. And my name is David DZISIAK, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer here with Botanico Inc. in Calgary, Alberta. But first, I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to share some perspective with you on what I view as really the untapped protein potential that lies within canola and oilseed rape. And to everybody from Europe who's on the program today, I apologize. I won't use the term oilseed rape, but I'll just use the word canola to encompass, of course, both crops grown here in North America and in Europe and in Australia. I have a long history with canola. I grew up in Western Canada. My family has a grain and oilseed farm here. We grow a lot of canola still today. I had a very long career with Dow AgroSciences Corteva as a global business leader within their oilseeds group, really focused around our canola traits and our high oleic program. And now I'm with a company called Botanico here in Calgary, where we really focus on how to process canola differently. We really take a look at a different approach and how we can pull the different co-products out. So we have a method really based around aqueous processing and wet milling that we can disassemble the seed. We can really pull out the co-products in a very different fashion. So instead of pulling out liquid oil, we extract the oil bodies intact, and we can also pull out protein isolates and protein concentrates. That really gives us very new products that we can take into new high-value markets that canola proteins and oils really haven't been in before. So it's very, very exciting. In the past, I was chair of the Canola Council, and I'm currently on the board of Protein Industries Canada. So those experiences, it give me some great insights into the industry and where I believe the opportunities lie. So let's look back first. If from my experience, I came into the industry in the early 1980s, and at that point in time, canola was really about a low saturated fat oil, and then biotechnology and GMOs came into the mix. And from the mid-90s up until the mid-2000s, really the industry was driven by herbicide-resistant traits and other traits, and really developing the hybrid technologies within canola germplasm. And then around the mid-2000s, the time of trans fats, and also the time for biofuels. And so the conversion to get trans fats out of the North American diet really drove the innovation around developing high oleic oils like omega-9 canola oil. And also the biofuel industry came online, and that really drove a lot of greater production. So the demand for oils became much higher for canola oil, both from the human food side as a way to replace hydrogenation, that function, and to bring in a good feedstock for biofuel. So here we are, at 2020, and what's going to be next on the innovation agenda for canola. And I always want to look at things from the market side, from the customer side. And so where are the consumer needs going to be? Where is the marketplace going? And where do the opportunities reside within that kind of future perspective? So I really believe it's around the protein side of canola. We have a lot of effort going on in terms of breeding high yielding crops around disease resistance. There certainly is more to do, but we have really well established methodologies and a lot of investment that's going into really some fantastic breeding efforts to really drive yield and adaptation and productivity. But canola is also a very large protein crop. It's 45% oil, but it's 22% protein, and it really has not been developed. And if you look into the future where the market is going in a number of areas, that really is where I believe the opportunity lies to really drive the next generation of value. Companies like McKinsey have studied this very well, and we see the food industry really driving towards plant-based foods. If you're going to produce plant-based foods, you need new sources of protein ingredients, and that's a place that the canola industry can play and participate. Plant-based foods really are here to stay. It's not some kind of a trend or a fad. It really is got long-term fundamentals. Even during COVID, plant-based foods realized 27% year-over-year sales growth. close to 60% of households have bought plant-based foods. And there's a 78% reuse intention. In the course of the last year, it's attracted over $2 billion of capital investment. So a lot of it private capital, a lot of private equity and venture capital is being attracted into the space. And that's always a good sign that something is here to stay. And it's really being driven by a change in consumer attitudes, and really looking at our new generation of consumers based around Generation Z and young millennials, and the people that are under 35. And so there is a greater and much more attention being paid to the health benefits of plant-based and protein-rich diets. Protein-rich diets are also an important element for the aging population, and so that's garnered a lot of attention. There is much more attention being paid towards environmental stewardship and animal welfare. And so one of the things that COVID did bring forward, it kind of put a bit of a spotlight, on meat packing plants and the situation in there, both from the animal welfare perspective, but also from the workers within those facilities. And so rightly or wrongly, it did illuminate that and probably brought more attention into that space. And again, changing demographics and continued global income growth. Plant-based foods are an important part of many diets, especially across Asia Pacific. So whether it be for religious or historical or cultural reasons, plant proteins in their many forms, either as raw seed or as extracted proteins, are an important part of that diet. And in the chart, which you can see on the bottom, the retail sales growth has really driven up, increased quite dramatically in the course of the last couple of years, adding over $2 billion of retail sales just within the US marketplace. Our example here in Canada is also very, I think, illustrative of where the trend is going. And here are some of the headlines. But today there's over $1.5 billion being invested in protein processing. And the majority of these investments are really going towards pulse crops, peas and lentils, faba beans. Canola really hasn't been participating much within that space. And Merit Food has announced the ability to make a protein isolate from canola. We know that DSM in Europe is also looking at producing a protein isolates out of canola. But canola and canola protein going into the human food space is really at a very nascent, at a very early stage. The market is very large. There's over 550 million metric tons of plant protein that gets produced. About 115 million tons of it goes into human food, but only about 3 million tons really goes into concentrates and isolates as food ingredients. And it really is dominated by soy and by wheat. So of all the plant proteins that are going into food ingredients as isolates or as concentrates, over 76% is from soy and around 20% comes from wheat. And so, pea has probably got 2 or 3% share of that market today, but all the other crops represent less than 1% of that volume. And the canola industry really has got some real advantages here. We have a very well established and an incredibly productive production base. We can produce a lot of crop very reliably. And we have a deep scientific understanding of the germplasm and things that we can do to make canola protein even better. So the opportunity to improve the base germplasm and to further develop our processing technologies, it creates a real opportunity for the industry. If we just look at Western Canada and say typically we're going to have about 20 million tons of crop being produced. So this chart kind of represents the protein in the crop across all of our major protein crops that are being destined, say, towards the food industry. So in dark blue, we've got canola. On the upper right, in yellow, we've got peas. Below that, in green, we've got lentil. Then there's some chickpea, faba bean, and hemp protein. But we can certainly see that canola has got by far and away the greatest protein production out of all these crops. We produce well over 4 million tons of protein in the seed in Western Canada. And that certainly creates an opportunity, here at least, to really shift our strategy from exporting raw seed and to further increase the domestic processing opportunities for ingredients. If you look at Europe, Europe is protein deficit. And so Europe imports a lot of protein from the plant side. A lot of soya primarily, for animal feed and for some processing. But there's a tremendous opportunity within the European context to really take advantage of the amount of protein that resides in oilseed rape, and how we can really capture that either through processing or through germplasm improvement to serve these new markets. So what are the markets? One is certainly animal feed. A lot of canola protein today, certainly in North America, really goes for dairy feed. Those animals can take advantage of the bypass protein. If you look into the future, by 2050, the demand for feed protein is going to increase by some 200 million tons. That's an incredible market opportunity. The largest growth within that space is in aquaculture. That will reflect 2x demand of where the feed protein getting used in aquaculture today. And then, of course, the next largest growth would be in swine and in poultry around monogastric feeds. So whether you're looking at aquaculture or if you're looking at monogastric feed, there is a need for high quality protein. So these markets are going to be there. They're expanding today. They've been driven by population growth and by people wanting to eat better. As more and more people join the middle class, that opens up a tremendous opportunity to pull out the high quality protein out of a crop like canola. So as we concentrate protein, we create more value. And canola meal today is selling in the range of a long-term average, say around $300, $350 a ton. But if we can move up into the protein concentrate space, from that 60% protein concentrate up to 80% protein, that really lets us get into higher value markets like aquaculture, a companion animal, and then producing protein isolates, which would be above 80% protein concentration. It really let us get well into the human nutrition side of things. And you can see on the very left-hand side that we can have a dramatic impact on the value that can be created by paying more attention onto the protein quality and being able to access these new and different markets. There's a lot of opportunity within canola to really improve the crop. Today it's about 45% oil, about 22% protein, but about a third of the seed really doesn't have a lot of value. And so opportunities to really increase protein content could create a lot of new value. And especially by taking the approach of being able to maintain the oil content, increase the protein content, reduce some of these fiber components or carbohydrate components that really don't add value. So if we can shift the mass balance of the seed and really produce more protein, maintain the oil, that offers up a tremendous opportunity. We certainly know that there's a lot of germplasm examples that are out there. Corteva AgriScience has got a major program on right now, really taking a look at making that kind of a shift. And so being able to put a lot of effort into breaking the linkage drag that you often see by increasing protein. It has often been related back into decreased yield, but there certainly is germplasm and technologies out there that will allow us to break that relationship and really focus on increasing the high value co-products, oil and around protein. So we're very much looking forward to these new germplasms coming onto the marketplace. Canola protein is a really nutritious protein. And so if we take a look at the PD-CAS score across several of the plant proteins, we can see it's right up there pretty much with soy. So depending on how the protein is isolated and separated, dried, purified, it can have a very high PD-CAS score equivalent to that of soy. Sorry, my mouse is moving around here. We know all the attention being paid to something like hemp protein, but canola from a nutrition perspective offers a much more of a complete protein than something like out of the pulse crop proteins. So there's a great opportunity there to really harness that nutrition quality and make it available into the food industry. Aquaculture feed is certainly a large opportunity that I touched on before. Here at Botanico, through our novel processing approach, by using this water-based wet milling kind of a system, we've developed a 75% canola protein concentrate. We're targeting that towards the salmon and shrimp aquaculture feed industry. And with our aqueous processing and other techniques that we use, we can really remove the critical anti-nutritional factors that reside within canola, getting rid of the phytate, removing the glucosinolates, reducing synapine down, because we can get rid of the majority of the hulls at very early in the process, where we can remove a lot of those factors down below no effect levels. That's over a $1.5 billion market opportunity for canola protein. We've completed some early feeding trials, looking at salmon. And you can see on the bottom left chart, that would be the feed intake. So we've got 5, 10, 20, and 30% inclusion. So even up at the 30% inclusion level, there is really no drop off in terms of the feed intake of the canola protein. And it showed it very well in feed conversion. And so even at the highest test levels, we maintained a very high level of feed conversion. And so this demonstrates that a properly processed canola protein can really be, was well accepted within a salmon diet. They were very vigorous eaters, and they maintained their feed intake. We had very good feed conversion. And so we think this can be an important new opportunity for canola protein. We've recently got results back on our shrimp feeding trial and seen very much of a similar kind of a trend, where we can have a very well accepted meal into the ration, protein into the ration, that was eaten well, feed intake was good, excellent feed conversion, and that can open up a very large new market. This industry is growing rapidly. As I said before, it's going to double in size. And so that really opens up a need for new proteins. And there's a lot of work going on to try and develop insect protein or to develop single cell protein. Those are, they aren't cheap. They're difficult to scale. And they're right now very, very expensive. And using a crop like canola as a feedstock, because we have so much of it and we're very good at producing it, it really will allow us to create a new kind of a protein concentrate that can be very, very cost effective and be priced right to allow for rapid adoption. The value proposition around canola too just doesn't reside within the quality of the protein and where we can put it to work. And so so much more attention is being paid to sustainable production and to the stewardship that is being used to produce these crops. And I know in Western Canada here, we've got a very good story. We've got a very sustainable crop rotation system. We have a large land mass. We don't have to tear up any new land or wetlands or tropical rainforest to expand our production. So through breeding and this sustainable intensification of yield, we can really advance our productivity. We've got good market access. Canada exports over 70% of the canola globally. And so we can hit major markets all around the world. And we can take these technologies and bring them into a place like Europe for expanding domestic processing and, of course, putting these same traits into the germplasm there. And we've got great know-how around crop production. And canola is one of the crops, or one of the few crops, that has such a great scientific base within it, and the people at this meeting kind of well represent that. And so the opportunity to take that deep science know-how and really focus around making the quality of the crop even better. So can we do things that can further remove a number of the things that sort of hold back canola protein from being a large participant in these markets? You're further reducing glucosinolates, further reducing phytate, further reducing factors that may impact taste and palatability to make it a more neutral, more palatable protein. And that would really open up a lot of market opportunities and really allow it to be cost-effective protein that uniquely could be delivered at large scale and really on a global basis. So it's got a lot of the key criteria are in place for canola and oilseed rape to be a much larger participant in the value-added protein side of this emerging industry. And so using all the great know-how that's represented at this conference and using all the modern tools and advanced plant breeding tools and using the modern tools of science and biotechnology to really improve this crop, we can do things faster. We can adopt these technologies across the seed industry faster and really open up new market opportunities that will create value across the whole value chain. Thank you for listening and have a successful conference. Thank you.